Greetings and welcome back to the show, World War II Books Where to Start. I'm your host, General Friedrich Paulus, sitting here in the ruins of Stalingrad, about ready to surrender. But before I do, and by the way, I think I'm doing the right thing by surrendering. I think there's nothing else to be gained here. But I've done what I can. You know, I did it all. I did exactly what I could. But until then, I'm going to give you my top 5 worst World War II books I read this year, 2024. Sitting here in late November, pondering these things, I've come up with the dogs. And I'm going to give you top 6, actually, not top 5. I'm going bold, going above and beyond with a nefarious mention. So that nefarious mention would be 6 Victories by Vincent O'Hara. This is a recitation of what he feels are the 6 most crucial battles in the Mediterranean War. Unfortunately, Vincent O'Hara cannot write a narrative to save his life. This is like reading longitude and latitude values off a GPS system on your car dashboard. For no reason, for a long time. It's really a reference book. The guy cannot tell a story. He cannot thread things together and make it interesting. He can't. This is an encyclopedia. This is a reference book. If you take it as that, it's still difficult to choke down. And that's just his style. That's what he's got to offer. So it's bad. And, you know, if you got to buy it just for a reference point, that's about all it's worth. Sorry, not very good. On to the actual list. Number 6, Nimitz at War by Craig Simons from 2022. It makes the worst list because it's simply a coffee table book about how great good old Chester was. It's not really a straight up biography. It's supposedly about his leadership qualities. But it kind of gets yay, sis boom ba kind of territory. And I feel like this was a favor to I think he was chairman of the Nimitz Institute or whatever, at whatever university at the time. So this is kind of like a salutatory kind of gift to that institution. And it doesn't come across as being valuable at all. It's a lot of bland stories about how Nimitz's leadership style evolved during the war. It's just got really nothing to offer. You might buy it just because, ooh, Nimitz is on the cover. Number 5, Battle of the North Cape by Angus Constam from 2009. And as much as I liked his book on the Bismarck, this is how much I detest this book. He took about 5.5 steps backward in his writing style and ability here. Really dumbed down, repetitive, and sometimes nonsensical. I feel like he's really insulting the reader with the writing style and the way he presents material. I was infuriated by the time I got done with it. It just really beating you in the face with the stupid. So, gotta avoid this one. Number 4, Countdown 1945 by Chris Wallace. This is from 2020. Chris Wallace, of course, being famous for being a newspaper or TV reporter for years and years and decades. What he is not is a good historical writer. He is pretty bad. This is just a gimmick book. It really is a gimmick book with the countdown, tick, 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 tick. We start off with longish chapters, and we start whittling them down as we get closer to the bomb going boom to get you that sense of drama, that sense of imminence, and the ticking fuse with a lot of GNDN side stories that have no place here. The obligatory love story, whoop-de-doo, who cares? And just an overall focus on drama, max drama at all times. If you want to watch a soap opera, go watch a soap opera. Don't read this. It's the same thing. So I was, again, pretty infuriated with a bit of a chuckle at the same time when I got done with this thing. It's just craptastic. All right, number 3. And I had a hard time here choosing which is the worst of the worst here. It gets progressively awfuler. But I'm going to go with The Nazi Empire by Mark Mazauer from 2008. And I had mentioned this as a possible to read for your first foray into the Eastern Front a couple years ago in the video, and I withdraw that recommendation now, having gone back and plowed through it in its entirety because I got stuck the first time, and now I know why I got stuck. Okay, so this is a bait and switch, just straight up bait and switch, and I swear I don't know what newspaper and magazine reviewers are reading when they put the blurb out. This is great. This is insightful. This is the most blah 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 book about the Nazi Empire you ever read. I don't know what they're saying, and I got a sneaky suspicion that they didn't read the book. They may have gone through the table of contents and found the section they were interested in and read that and said, there's my review, found it, and done. If they had read the entirety of the book, and if they had processed and absorbed it and had time to think about it before they wrote that review, I doubt it would be so glowing. I really do. Other historians love him, but that's part of the camaraderie and brotherhood of historians. You don't knock another guy necessarily because you may depend on his research. You're all good buddies. You all know each other. You go to conferences together. I get that. You're not going to MF each other unless he's a really bad outlier and a detriment to the cause. But newspaper and magazine reviewers have a duty to be far more honest, and they just flat out drop the ball here. It's BS. This is a bait and switch. So this is really not about Hitler's empire, except in the middle section. This is kind of a general look at Germanic history and its trends and tendencies, with the war thrown in there as an example of that. We get a quote from Francis Bacon at the start. We get the 1848 revolution. We get Bismarckian policy. We get colonial policy in the Bismarck era. We get policy at the end of World War I on in the eastern territories that they had been ceded by the Russians. Come on, man. Followed by post-war, a hefty post-war segment. It's not even a segment. It's a third of the book, post-war. Well, that's not got nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the Nazi Empire. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Half a star. That's bad. Number 2, going from worst to worst, awfuler, Stalingrad by David Glantz and Jonathan House from 2013. This is an amalgamation of his Stalingrad trilogy, compressed into one. It's a summary, it's a greatest hits, it's still long and tedious. It's maps and arrows, units here, units there, units there, units here. General this, general that, colonel this. Retreat, hold the line, advance along the axis, supplies were brought up. Whew. Brutal, man, brutal. Now, it's not bullet by bullet like some of his stuff is, or like Robert Forsyth is all the time. It's not like Michael Reynolds, bullet by bullet, ration by ration. But it's not elevated any higher. I myself read it to say I've read a David Glantz all the way through. I regret the experience deeply, and I apologize to the Emperor. All right, and for number 1, this is a split award. I couldn't decide who was the awfulest of the awful, so I gave them both a gold medal. First up, Pearl Harbor to Calgary by Mitsuo Fuchida, and a whopping 95 pages. This is the story of how he got converted to Christianity. The inducement to read it is lead pilot of Pearl Harbor and his journey towards Christianity. This is really just a Christian tract. It's just a recruiting tract. It's got a tiny bit in the front by Fuchida himself, roughly summarizing his life. You might as well say it's 25 words or less. It's really short and probably filled with a couple lies in there. I was rolling my eyes even during that brief summation of his life. It's like, I don't think this happened. This sounds like nonsense. But the rest of it is just a Jesus tract. It's a recruiting tool, nothing else. It is of no historical value, even though they threw in Jacob de Schazer's widow at the end as a teaser. You might guess something about the Tokyo raid, because he was on one of the B-25s of Dulow's raid. No, it's just a teaser. So it's entirely worthless historically, and just as a general reading thing, it's bad. It's got nothing to do with the war. It's bad. And the other one with the split award is War in the South Pacific by James Horan and Gerald Frank from 1943. And I kind of hesitate to put this on the podium because I know why it was written, but then again, it does deserve it at the same time. So this is a recruiting tool. This is a propaganda recruiting tool. Nothing else, nothing more. It's extremely bombastic and, hateful towards the Japanese. It's good to be in the Marines. It's good to be serving your country. It's, everybody can do this. Any American boy can do this. Japanese bullets don't hurt that much. Got patched up and went right back to my buddies and kept fighting. It's got a lot of ridiculous comic book feel to it at times. And as much as I like their USS Seawolf book, this is really the flip side, the other side of the mirror. And again, I know why it was written. It's probably a War Department project to help the recruiting drive and keep up the national spirit for fighting the war. But to keep this thing in print now, I think it was like a bit over the top. This has no real value, again, historically, other than as a curiosity. Maybe for researchers to go and fetch this back and say, report on the sociology of the hatred of the Japanese and the feeling of America at the time, that kind of thing. But as a historical nonfiction book of World War II vintage, or about reporting on the war, or being a historical book on the war, nonfiction, no. This retains no value today. And I'm really am kind of surprised it's still in print. I actually found it in audio. I don't know if it actually is in print. I found it on audio. There's plenty of listings on it on Goodreads. So perhaps there's got to use copies floating around the universe somewhere. But I cannot recommend this as anything but an exercise in eye rolling and frustration. So that's my top 6 worst books I read this year in World War II reading. With the classic and cliche thing today is to say, I read them, so you don't have to. At any rate, this is Friedrich Paulus. I'm looking forward to my comfortable apartment in East Berlin after the war. I think I'm going to have a good time there and reflect upon my life and its fruitful course. Until next time, happy reading.